Hello and welcome to another episode of What's for Dinner. We're using all the ingredients you see on the screen. Right now, I will show you how to make my take on traditional cabbage rolls. So first things first, cabbage rolls are a dish that require a lot of prep. After all the prep is done though, the cook time's fairly fast and it's a good way to feed a lot of people. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our cabbage itself ready. So first we need a pot of boiling water. Salted it just a little bit, just to add some seasoning to the leaves as they cook. While that comes up to temperature, I'm going to go ahead and get the sauce ready. So this is a can of tomato sauce, just plain old whatever brand tomato sauce. And a lot of recipes call for just this, which is a shame because while tomato sauce has a good flavor, there's definitely some room for improvement. So here I'm going to add in some dry spices. This is smoked paprika. Next up is some dry thyme. Next up, we're going to add in some ground mustard. Now, be careful with this. It can be deceptively strong and can really overpower things very easily. So add just a very little bit. That was about a teaspoon. And then finally, we're going to add in some dried dill. That's the last ingredient, and that's going to round out our sauce. We'll go ahead and whisk that through and then set it off to the side and begin to turn our attentions towards our filling. Now for the filling, I'm using carrot, celery, onion, and garlic. And I want to use all of those, and I want to mince them very finely because I don't want big chunks of vegetables in the filling. It'll both kind of damage the structural integrity so the rolls may fall apart, and it also just kind of changes the way things taste. And if you see on the screen now, I'm honing the knife. And now here's a picture of a bent knife edge versus a straight knife edge. And this is what this process does. There's a misconception that this is sharpening the knife, and it's not. When you sharpen the knife, you remove metal from the knife. What you're doing there, as you saw, was take a bent edge and make it straight. As you use the knife, the edge bends over to one side or the other, and it can give the knife the impression of being dull. I had sharpened my knife maybe the day before that, so I knew it had been sharpened recently, so I knew it needed to be honed. It's really something you should do basically every time you pick up the knife. It just guarantees that you have the sharpest edge you can possibly have without having to actually sharpen it every single time. And here you can see I'm just about done mincing all the vegetables. Go ahead and turn my attention to the garlic. We'll give it a good smash first. I don't always do this, but when you want really fine pieces of garlic, it does help to smash it first. It just kind of flattens it so it doesn't roll around the board as much. So with all the vegetation cut down, I'm going to go ahead and get into our mixing bowl and then do something a little strange. Not clean up, that's not strange. You should do that a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to salt these vegetables. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to draw some moisture out of them. This isn't for flavor. This is so the salt osmoses water out of the veggie pieces so that the filling is dry. So we'll talk more about that later. Here we're going to start turning our attention to our cabbage. So first off, if you take these big loose outside leaves off, if they're in good shape, go ahead and use them. If they've kind of got weird holes, looking a little buggy or a little damaged, don't use them. And then next, we're going to do something a little dangerous, which is to remove the core of a whole cabbage. So here you can see I'm placing the tip of the knife in, whack the bottom with your hand to drive it in a couple inches, and then carefully pull it out. You can skip all of this and boil the entire cabbage whole. I'm doing it this way because it's faster and because I'm assuming a lot of people don't have a pot that can hold a whole cabbage. So I do, but I wanted to do this in such a way that you could do it if you did not have a very large pot. So here you can see I'm just kind of removing the loose outside leaves. I got maybe 3 off entirely, but now I try to go for one more while it's still raw and just kind of shred it to pieces. So that means it's time to get the water involved. So I'm placing the cabbage head side down, so the stem end that I just cut out is what's facing up. We'll just kind of get it in the water, and then we're going to put the lid back on and let it cook for maybe 5 minutes. Once the pot comes back to a boil and it's been boiling for a couple minutes, go ahead and take the cabbage out and then begin to work off whichever leaves you can get off. And the process from here is just going back and forth into this process of boiling, removing the leaves, boiling, removing the leaves. The reason I do this again is not only because not everyone has a large pot that'll hold a whole cabbage, but this is much faster. And I also find that when you boil the entire head of cabbage enough to soften all the leaves, the outside leaves are destroyed while the inside leaves are just now tender. And here I'm taking a paper towel and I'm blotting the diced veggies and I'm removing all the excess moisture. Now with the vegetables nice and I guess desiccated, it's not quite the right word, but dried out, We'll add in some more herbage, that's some thyme. We're gonna add in a little bit of dried rosemary, not too much, I don't want that to overpower everything. And then this is some caraway seed. This is kind of my own little take on it. This is, I think of like kind of like Slavic foods and just kind of the flavors that kind of inspire me when I think about that. And caraway in rye bread or black bread is something that comes to mind. And then finally, we're going to add in a little bit of fresh ground black pepper. Now I'm blanching the leaves. I've pulled all the leaves off. I got them just soft enough to remove, but they need to be cooked enough that they can be rolled. And you can kind of see there, I tried to bend the leaf, and you can see as long as it's pliable enough to begin to roll, it's pliable enough to use. I find I don't like overcooking the leaves, especially, like, again, boiling the whole head of cabbage does that, because the final result, you end up with leaves that are too soft and the cabbage rolls don't really hold up anymore. So get the leaves in a little bit of cold water. You're not trying to shock them or anything, you're just trying to make them cold enough to handle. This is lean ground beef, about 2 pounds, and these are ancient grains. You don't need to use this ancient grain blend. You can use about a cup of any dried grains. I just happen to have this around. It's bulgur wheat, quinoa, barley, a few other things like that. But you could use dry rice or any of those I just mentioned by themselves. It is important to add these ancient grains, or well, any kind of dry grain. They're going to absorb all the excess moisture that comes out of the filling as they cook. And again, I'm trying to prevent moisture in this process because that will kind of damage the integrity of the roll. They become mushy and not this nice, firm cabbage roll that we like. So with everything mixed through, we're going to go ahead and add in a couple eggs. The eggs will act as a slight binder. So with all of our pieces ready, we have our sauce, our filling, and our peeled leaves. We'll go ahead and start by putting a little bit of sauce in the very bottom of the pot. And I didn't mention this before. I'm doing this in a pressure cooker because I have one, and it figured it'd be nice to feature a few different cooking methods on this channel rather than just cooking everything on the stovetop. So a little sauce in the bottom. Take about it's about 6 to 8 ounces of meat. It's a good handful. That's, you can see it's about the size of a baseball, maybe an orange. And then kind of just to squeeze it down into a somewhat oblong cylinder. And then just begin to roll the leaves. Start at the very bottom. You want to start at the part of the leaf that connects to the cabbage and finish at the very top because that top bit is thinner. So as you roll it up, it won't get in the way. And just keep doing this. Keep forming your cabbage rolls. Roll them up, put them in the pot. You don't want to crowd the pan, but you do want to get it fairly full. You want to leave a little bit of space for the sauce and all the juices to circulate. So with one layer of cabbage rolls in the pot, we'll go ahead and add in our red potatoes. If you end up with any potatoes that are like really, really large, feel free to cut those in half because they may not cook all the way through. And this was about a 3-pound bag of red potatoes. So add in, this is about half of the remaining sauce over top of the potatoes in the first layer of cabbage rolls. And then finally, I'm going to finish off the last layer. If you don't get a full layer like I did, that's not really a problem. Go ahead and just evenly spread them out. And then we're going to top those with the remaining sauce. If you don't have enough to fully cover absolutely everything, that's fine. With our cabbage rolls already prepared to go, we'll go ahead and get this in the pressure cooker. The great thing about the pressure cooker is it takes only about 45 minutes and you can pretty much just walk away from it. This is my cooker's just regular cook setting. Just make sure you don't use the slow cooker setting. So 45 minutes later, you can see it's hissing away with steam. Go ahead and let it release. Wait forever for the steam to come off because it takes quite some time. Go ahead and plate your cabbage rolls up. Make sure you get some of those potatoes. Make sure you get a little bit of that delicious sauce as well. And a good way to check if everything is done is check the potatoes. If the potatoes are cooked all the way through and nice and tender, the cabbage rolls are definitely cooked all the way through. So that is my recipe for kind of traditional American Polish style cabbage rolls. As always, I thank you for watching. Please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe.